Hey everybody, this is Robert People, and you're listening to People's Court. Thanks for tuning in. Today is Friday, July 12th, 2019, and I've spoken a lot about The Little Mermaid. I haven't done it on here yet, but I've talked about it a lot on my social media. And if you don't know the story right now, Disney is doing another live action remake, and this time it is on The Little Mermaid. I believe they've done Jungle Book, Lion King is coming soon, Aladdin, and there may be a couple others that I'm not including. But The Little Mermaid is coming up, and the character of Ariel will now be played by a black actress by the name of Halle Bailey. Okay, Halle Bailey is the actress playing the live action Ariel. Now, of course, there's issues with this. Okay, there's issues with the fact that Disney is using a black character to play this part. Now, let's be honest here. What we're getting a lot of is outrage, which is laughable considering, number one, who it's coming from, what they've called other people. What they called other people who get outraged at certain things, right? The degrading names that they're called. Folks who get offended by stuff all the time. They love to say that about them. But some of the responses that come with it are terms like, not terms, but certain folks want to see Ariel remain white, okay? They want to see her remain white. And what comes with it is people saying things like, well, let's change black characters and have white people play them then, right? Let's see how black people like that. Or black people will be real upset or have a major issue if that happened, if a black character was made a white actor played a black character, if anything was switched. Even people going as far as to say things like, well, they need to do a story on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and let a white guy play him. Number one, don't be stupid. Martin Luther King is a real person. Okay, Dr. King is a real person. So it doesn't even make sense to use that example, to use that as a comeback. There's quite a few comebacks, and none of them are very wise. Again, you don't change history. Okay. Now, a lot of people might say, well, Disney, Little Mermaid, that's considered as history too. Guess what? Disney's fictional, in case anybody hasn't realized this. Okay. Now, here's a few main reasons why these are lousy comebacks. The having a white person play black characters, it's a terrible comeback, and I'll tell you why. For one thing, it's like this, and hopefully y'all can stay with me on this one. Over the history of television and movies, let's be frank about this. White folks have had a stranglehold on it, okay? I can think maybe, now, before I even get to that part, white actors, actresses, they can play all sorts of roles, okay? And when I say that, I'm talking about pretty much they can play pretty much anything. There's a whole lot more out there for them. Now, as much as people would love to come back here and say things like, well, wait a minute, before I get to that one. When it comes to people of color, as far as acting is concerned, I know what year this is. I know where we are supposed to be. However, there's a lot of people out there who still can't see black actors or black characters in movies and television shows as anything other than drug dealers, criminals, These drug lords, deadbeat fathers, hood rats, living in the hood, things like that. Can't see black actors playing anything but those roles. Now, we know what people can jump out here and say just so they can avoid sounding anything close to racist, but when it comes to movies and shows like that, it's a whole lot easier for certain people to see us as those ways. And Hollywood, let's be frank about this. Hollywood exploits that all the time. Hollywood loves to exploit what's wrong with the world to make money off of it. I mean, that's no big secret. I mean, anybody with half a brain can figure that out. So, of course, when it comes to the issues people of color have to face, they'll jump all over that one to get paid to make $1. So, obviously, a Mexican drug lord or someone playing a Mexican drug lord for the 1,000th time obviously can't be played by a white person. Because apparently that's all Mexicans do is play drug lords and all this other stuff. So anyway, when you have something like that, a person's race is very integral to the story. It's a very important part of the story. People have mentioned Tiana and the Princess and the Frog. Number one, I believe that takes place in very 1920s or 30s New Orleans. Her being black is a big part of that story. So to say, let's make her white, well, that's going to change the story now, isn't it? The Little Mermaid, Ariel being white is not a major part of that story. It is not a major part of the story. I understand the argument to keep her white, but to say that, to be quick to rush to say, well, let's just make black characters, have white people play black characters, that shows tone deafness, ignorance, and just a lack of even trying to understand anything. A lot of folks don't like the word diversity. You hate the word diversity because what that sounds like to you is that it seems totally impossible that a person of color, black, Latino, it's completely impossible that someone like that could earn something, anything, without affirmative action having to take place. Oh, yeah. Without affirmative action taking place or them getting some opportunity, they stole it from some white person. There are people out there who really think that we are just that incapable of earning anything ourselves. For one thing, we are still, people of color I'm talking about, pigeonholed as far as playing certain roles on television and movies. Now, when it comes to the stories, any movie, any television show in which, and I'm talking about in our entire history, in which being black didn't have much to do, being black or being Latino didn't have much to do with the story, I don't know too many that are out there like that, where it was never about their race, where no story that they've had, no episode, no anything dealt with the issue of race. Doesn't happen the same way with white people, with white actors, white characters in movies and shows. Unless you have, the different backgrounds included. But if it's one where it's just a white person living their lives, there's not a whole lot that they have to deal with as far as race goes. Unless they're drawn into the hood or having to deal with the hood rat or the drug lord, all this other good stuff, right? A lot of what's out there that include or that have black characters, again, them being black is a major part of the story. And it baffles me that people don't understand that. That the fast response is to say, well, if you claim you don't care about that, let's change black characters and have white people play them. Even to go as far as to say that let them play real life people. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. It's like, are you serious? Playing people who are, people who are real. That's what you think works too. Doesn't make sense. And before anybody comes on here, and this is what I wanted to get to before I finish this thing also. I wanted to get to this as well. Before you come on here or anywhere and are quick to tell us meaning people of color, how much we need to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, stop playing the victim and work for everything we have and stop blaming all this, save it. I am so not the one for that. That's a tired response. It's a lazy response. It's overused, and it shows a gross lack of thinking in any form or fashion. The fact of the matter is, whatever this year is, right? Blacks and Latinos, for the most part, many of us have to work twice as hard to get half as much. That is a fact. That is not an opinion. That's not something I'm saying, and I hope people agree with it. That is a factual statement. We got to work twice as hard to get half as much because of how society views us. There's examples all over the place. And if you don't get them, that means you ain't paying attention. That's all there is to it. None of us need the lectures on how we need to conduct ourselves so that we're not victims. Damn if we haven't tried that already. We've all been there. This isn't about being a victim of any kind. That doesn't even fit. But the minute people of color complain about anything, right? That's the first place some folks go. They go straight to that. Stop blaming everybody for your problems. Just you work hard and you can get everything that everybody else has. Boy, if you're not the most ignorant sounding people, those who say that, and believing it's just that simple. We're talking about a Disney cartoon, y'all. A Disney cartoon. Now, I'm the person who says, hey, keep it as it is. I say that. But I'm also not going to lose sleep because Disney decided to do something different. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. Not to the point where I got to come back and, let's take everything else black people got and try to switch it and everything. Why does that even make sense? How fragile do you have to be that offended that you got to try to switch everything else up to, even to the point that you're not even thinking about you're not even thinking about it when you say, let's have white actors play real black historical figures. You're not even thinking. You're putting apples and oranges together. That makes no sense. And what is this about anyway? This is about what? Paying us back? How much do we have that you got to pay us back by taking our black characters away from us too? How many black characters? Let's just think about this here. In comparison, how many black characters are there in every movie, every television show that's ever been done? How many black characters are out there compared to white characters? I mean, anything that has ever been done. How many? It is probably so grossly disproportionate as far as how many white characters exist in the history of television and movies as compared to black characters. So Disney decides to take one. from a fiction, not a real person, but a fictional character who happens to be white. White is not a big part of her story at all, Ariel's. And the answer is, let's take the few black characters that exist in comparison to white characters, and let's make them all white too, just to see how black people would like that. We don't have that many to begin with. And it's evident because of the fact that you got to use real historical figures. I say that again. It's evident how few black characters there are out there when that's not where your mind is able to go. How many white characters can you name from television and movies? Probably a whole lot more than you can name black characters, right? But that's why people have to say things like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, because you know yourself that there aren't that many black characters in television and movies to begin with. Probably didn't realize that. It's your right, people, if you want to. If it's that important that Ariel stays white for you and it's really going to cause you all this stress and traumatize you for life, trust me, I don't want any kind of harm brought to anybody over that, any type of psychological damage done because Ariel's being, played by a black actress now. Of course I don't want that. But do your homework. Don't be quick to rush and say black people need to let's have white people play black characters now and see how they like that. Because for one thing, you have to make sure that them being black is not a part of the story, or you end up changing the story. The Little Mermaid story is not changed by them being by Ariel being played by a black actress. The story doesn't change. For a lot of black characters, quite a few, that story changes if the actors playing them are white. It changes. My wife and I are watching this series Empire, the Fox series Empire. Can we change those characters white? Can we have a white Cookie? Can we have a white Lucius? Can we have a white Jamal, Andre? Can we make all those characters white? No. Because the whole thing is centered around how they came up as black men and women and children. The show Blackish, we can't even call. That the whole show is about that. What else do we have? Oh goodness, there's so many. I go back to the classic Good Time. The Good Time can't be played by white people. It's a poor black family. That's what it's all about. Now, like anything else, and I close on this, like anything else, my honest belief is that most people weren't even thinking about it until outrage started. Once outrage started, then it became a thing where, oh yeah, we got a problem with it too. Like that, like society has to tell you to be mad at something. But do your homework. Do your homework and ask why, for one thing, it bothers you that much for Disney to do this, but also why it makes no sense at all and shows your own ignorance and your lazy thinking to believe that the proper response to something like this is to replace the few black characters we have, the few Latin characters we have, with white people, not for a sense of any type of purpose, not to advance any conversation, not to advance a race, a particular group of people, not to advance anything whatsoever, not to create a diversity or an element of diversity that did not exist before, but as quote unquote payback. Let's see how you like it. If that's as far as you got with this whole thing, if that's as far as your mind went, then that says a whole lot about you, doesn't it? This is Robert People. You listen to People's Court. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll be back and see you back here on Monday.